What's happening, everybody? It's Jack here with Suburban Tactical Nation. Today I got a couple blades on loan from our buddy Jason. Most of you know him as NebuCloud over at Instagram and YouTube. Big part of the community, helps a lot of people out, and just a good dude all around. Today we're going to take a look at his Benchmade 940 Osborne. I've never had a chance to get a hold of one of these, and he was so kind to send this out and let me check it out. He also sent another, and it's one of the older versions of a restock of Griptilian with some serrations. We'll get into that in another video, but first we'll take a look at this bad boy. So we'll get ahead and get on into this thing. Get him. So unless you're completely brand new to the knife world or the knife community, or if you lived under a rock for the last 15 years or so, you probably know the Benchmade Osborne is a pretty iconic knife, pretty tried and true, and there's several variants nowadays of this. Blade HQ took advantage with the Benchmade company to come up with their signature exclusive, which always comes in the natural G10 and the blacked out hardware black blade. We're coming in at 7.87 inches overall on this knife, just under 8 inches. Pretty good full size knife for EDC for carry. Blade length on this, plenty of cutting edge, and it's coming in at 3.40 inches, just under 3.5 inches. You've got a blade thickness of 0.12 inches and a handle length of 4.47 inches. And a handle thickness of 0.44 inches, and the weight on this comes in at a 2.65 ounces. As far as the lock goes, you know, it's not a liner lock, it's not a frame lock, it's the access lock. Almost everybody out there knows and has seen the access lock, which Benchmade has made famous. So the access lock is a system that's held by 2 individual springs on each side. And when you open the blade, it pushes the springs together, and then once it hits the stop pin, you've got a cutout on the tang here where this bar goes across and holds it into place once the spring releases it back. So it's pretty simple but very effective. It's actually pretty underrated as far as strength goes, because it is really tough. If you ever had one in your hand, you know that thing's not going anywhere unless you engage the spring. And if you notice, there is lots of screws for as far as the hardware goes. You've got your 2 on each side that help hold the liners in place to the scales, and you've got your screws that go in from where the standoffs are also. And you got your pivot. You've got 2 decently large thumb studs, which makes for a good deployment. But with the access lock, you really don't even need the thumb studs if you don't want to use them. You can just pull back on that and it'll fly right out. Also, with it being open back, you've got 2 standoffs. They did not include a lanyard hole on this, but you also have some jimping on the back there, so when it goes in the pocket you got a little something to grab onto, get some grip on there if need be. G10 on this is pretty smooth, but it's still got the same shape as the original with the aluminum handles. And they do add, just behind the stop pin there on both sides of the liners, you've got some decent jimping going on there, so you can get a little bit of grip on there. Also underneath, they've done the same on the top and the bottom, where you put your finger there as like a choil to give you some pretty good grip. And although I find myself always, because I have longer thumbs, I always extend out, and seems to handle pretty well with no traction on the top. My thumb goes on there pretty nicely, so you can get a lot of different things done with it. So moving into the materials and makeup of this knife, we're looking at a blade material. You're looking at M4 steel on this, and I think it's a great steel. Aside from its highly corrosive properties, it is still an excellent steel to use. It can definitely be used for EDC, and it's going to hold an edge for a long time, and it's going to stand up to some pretty significant abuse within reason. But it does have a Cerakote finish on the blade, along with the hardware, I believe, is done in Cerakote, including the pocket clip and it does have stainless steel for the inside liners there, partial liners. Got the natural G10, which is known as JG10, Ghost G10, so many different names over time, but it is a natural G10, and the way it comes, you can just see right through it, and it gives off kind of a greenish tint. If you've never seen these type of scales, I think most of everybody has nowadays. There's so many different makes and models and different companies that are taking advantage of doing that with these scales. What makes it special about this, though, is you can see the mechanics of the blade on the inside, the mechanisms, and you can see it actually, you can see the Omega spring inside there flex as you open and close it. Pretty cool. And the hardware and the black on this just really makes a special, little bit more hue, darker hue to the green on this, I think, when you have that color. As far as a pocket clip goes, you've got tip up only, right or left, so that's a good thing. You've got your kind of your split dart looking Benchmade clip there. Not the biggest fan of this clip, but it will do the job. And it's not fully deep carry, but there's tons of aftermarket clips you can get. Now, if you've never seen the Benchmade Osborne 940, do note that the original model comes in green aluminum scales and a closed back construction with purple backspacer there. For the most part, the shape is pretty much the same. It's just done in G10 on this, and there is so many different variants of this knife out there, just like the bug out, since these are two more of their popular items from Benchmade. Definitely popular models. There's definitely so many different variants on blade steels and scales, carbon fiber. Flightanium makes a ton of titanium scales, and the list goes on. Go ahead and do some blade comparisons here to give you a better idea on the shape and size of this thing. We'll start with the other Blade HQ exclusive, one I own, which is the Kaiser Begleiter. Her length, I think it's got it by maybe 1/8 of an inch, or just a tad hair over there. But it's got a slender handle, a long blade, definitely a stabby tip, pointy tip there. And then we'll go ahead and pair it up with the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. Definitely more handle and blade as far as height goes up against the Osborne. Two totally different beasts, both great knives nonetheless. A little bit more, definitely thickness on the handle on the Spyderco. We'll do the bug out. Bug out's definitely a little bit shorter. A little more height on the blade, a little more sliciness going to happen with this one for sure. Thickness is pretty similar. We'll go ahead and put it up against one I've never showed on the channel before, which is my Benchmade Mediator, which is an automatic, one of my favorite knives in my collection. And there will be a review on this knife for sure. But to give you an idea, it's definitely got very close profile on the blade as far as the reverse tanto, kind of a modified tanto blade, and pretty similar edges and grinds and swedge at the top there. Handle shapes are pretty similar also, except for the texturing on the handle, which I love, really love on this knife, but not so much of a grippy on the G10 texture on this. You've still got stuff to grab onto with the chamfering. So going into the pros and some of the things I like about this, which is there is a lot to like about the Osborne. This is the first time I've actually handled one, so this not being my knife, I couldn't really put it through the paces and give it too much testing or anything. It does cut well. You obviously know it's M4 steel. It's going to hold up to a lot of use and abuse. The overall design is there to benefit you for most EDC tasks. This can be even used, also as a camping knife. That's kind of what they advertise it as on their box. The fact that it's the Blade HQ exclusive, I definitely like the touch that they've done on this. with the natural G10, and then they put you the M4 steel on there. The standard model does come in S30V, which is perfectly fine for me, but I do like the fact that they got the M4 on here and it's got a Cerakoted finish on it, which gives it even more strength and protection against the highly corrosive properties on this blade. I really do like Blade HQ's exclusives. I like a lot of them. I don't like every single knife they come out with it because they do so many different ones, but I think they really did a good job on this, and it looks really nice. That G10 really shows up well with the black, and just the fact that you can see everything on the inside. Definitely with the black it stands out a lot more as opposed to, like, say, my Kaiser, which still looks fantastic, but you can't see as much because it's got, you know, the finish that it has on it. Let's go ahead and walk through some of the cons and maybe some of the dislikes. Not so much dislikes, just more of personal preference. I would say I definitely prefer more of a height on a blade, like Spyderco's PM2, where you have more of a flat grind and more slicing ability. But don't let that take away from the great shape of this blade, because it does serve its purpose and it's still going to slice and cut and everything. Moving on to the next thing, it's definitely a long blade, and it seems even more longer than what it really is, because you got over that 3-inch blade length, 3.5 inches almost, and then you've got 4 inches plus on the hand, and you've got all that cutting surface, which you really probably don't need that much length on the cutting, and if you do, you'd probably go with a fixed blade anyway. Going into the final conclusion on this, you know, it is a classic Benchmade design. Although this may not be for everybody, it is still highly sought after knife and stands up to the test of time since the beginning when they released this thing. I think it's a good knife. I'd probably be a little more picky as far as which one I would get. I would definitely go with more stainless blade, and I might even explore the option of going with the mini, because I can see why with the length. Not that it's, you know, not doable. I can see where the mini makes sense a little more, at least for as far as I'm concerned with it. But you know, it's an excellent knife. It's definitely usable, very customizable. Definitely with the cool thing with the Blade HQ exclusive with the JG10, the natural G10 you got here, you can customize with the dies. You know, you can do pretty much whatever you want with them, or you can just keep it the way it is and it looks fantastic. So unless you just don't like that color. Of course, you can go on Benchmade nowadays and do a complete custom shop build. So before I go, I just want to say thanks to Jason for giving me the opportunity to check out the Blade HQ exclusive of the Osborne. Never got a chance to handle the Osborne before. It was really awesome getting to check it out, get a feel for it, and make my mind up on some future decisions for maybe picking one up. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to check out your other knife. We'll look at that, the Griptilian, here in the next video. Make sure you guys go check his Instagram out and give him a follow, and check his YouTube out. He does a lot of different reviews on different things, different EDC knives and multi-tools and stuff like that. Pretty cool stuff on there. So as always, I'll leave links down below where you can find NebuCloud's YouTube and his Instagram, and I'll also leave links for this knife, which is no longer for sale on Blade HQ, but sometimes they do a restock. You never know what they might pull out every once in a while. But there are several variants, so you can find the Osborne on their website for sure. Also, you can check out Benchmade stuff where you can customize anything you want out on there. So, until I see you on the next video, you guys have a great day, and I'll see you